Does it even count as one of my wrap-ups if it's not at least a little late? Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be doing my January monthly wrap-up and talking about everything that I read in the month of January. Now originally I was thinking that January was not the best month for how many things I got done, but going back to look at my list I actually feel like I did pretty good. I did more than I thought I did. I feel like some things that I did earlier in the month feel like they were last year and they weren't. And so I got a little bit more done. Still tons to go, but pretty good progress. And so with that, let's jump in and talk about it. So first off the bat, it was a really quick listen and did it right. I started at the end of the year and finished it just a couple days in, is Summer Night, which is book 4, I believe, of the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Now this had tied with Stones of Light for the a vote we did in Discord, and those were the ones that I was supposed to read. Stones of Light really did not work for me, and I did end up, though, getting to this one, and Summer Night was okay. It was pretty much what I expected. I haven't been a huge fan of the Dresden books, but I'd meant to continue on for a while, so it was a good excuse. It was alright. I didn't hate it. Wasn't really my thing. It's one of the weird fairy ones, and so I know it's supposed to get better. I'll probably slowly kind of get through those. My library has all of the audiobooks, and they're short audiobooks, so probably things I'll fill in here or there, but yeah, I mean, it wasn't anything crazy. It was alright. About what I expected. Better than the werewolf one. But that's not saying a whole lot. But yeah, not bad for that part. And then the big one, which obviously I did read, Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I did do a full review of this one, and I thought this was pretty good. It didn't blow my mind or anything, but I thought it was enjoyable. I did a lot of cool things and had some twists on kind of a fairy tale type of story with like the whimsy, but with some cool Cosmere stuff, and so really interesting. And I'm feeling pretty optimistic about the rest, because while I wasn't crazy about this one, I think I came out about 3.5, which rounds up to a 4, pretty good rating. Nothing crazy, but a fun story, something I enjoyed reading, and so if the other ones are fun and I enjoy reading them, that's definitely a win. So we'll be interested in seeing how those ones go as well. And then we had something I'd been meaning to get to for quite some time, a book I really enjoyed, The Curse of Chalion by Lois McMaster-Bujold. And this one, I had literally been meaning to get to August, because this won a different vote. And so this is the first book I ever triple formatted. I have this physical copy, the ebook was free with Prime Reading, and I got the audiobook. So for a few days, every single bit of my reading time, whether it was physical during the day, Kindle in bed at night, audio during time, save time for audio, all of it was dedicated to this, and I got through it so fast. So I might try to do some more multi-formats for the same books, because it worked really, really well and helped me get through. And I really enjoyed this book. It was my first time reading Bujold, and I have several other of the World of Five Gods books. I've heard good things about her Vorkosigan. I'm probably saying that wrong, but that series as well. I do have a full review for this also, but it's a it's kind of, you know, your medieval-ish setting, but it's more Spanish themed than just like your typical like English, and it just has a very like kind of classic feel, but in a lot of really good ways. It has a kind of a slower story, a lot of politics, but just immediately gets you to care about the characters, and so that goes a long way. And I'm really excited to read more Bujold. I quite enjoyed having that, so it was pretty awesome to read that one. And then I did have one last of the quarterfinalists for SPSFC 2 that I read during this time, which was Echogenesis by Gary Gibson. And this one I have a review for as well. I was kind of more in the middle. I thought I had some interesting ideas, but not everything really came together for me. As people wake up on some other planet, they have no memories beyond a certain point. They have no idea who they are, how they got there, and for some reason they decided to make them all teenagers, and I really don't understand why that choice was made, and I didn't really care for that, but it had some interesting things, and I felt like if we would have spent more time exploring, I would have probably enjoyed it more, but it kind of did some stuff with the plot I just wasn't a huge fan, but I thought it was still pretty solid. This is one, too, though, I know that others definitely liked more than I do, too, and sometimes it just comes down to taste with those things. But that was that one. And then we had Brotherhood of the Wolf by David Farland. This is book 2 in Rune Lords, and this one I also did audio. The audio is all available on Audible. I have the third book. I have like 3, 4, and 7, I think. So for 3, I'll actually get to hybrid and read some of the physical too, which will be really nice. But I didn't have copies of the other books, and since they were free as audiobooks and they're narrated by Ray Porter, yeah, I wasn't going to pass that up, so I'd been doing that. And book 2 took a while to get going with it, and it became really clear because it is setting up a much larger series. Book 1 felt almost like it could have been a standalone, with barring a few changes. Book 2 took a while to get going because it was really, really starting to set things up for the whole series. And get a lot of bigger things going. And the second half especially, a lot of great stuff. Really liked the way it was happening. So I'm really interested to continue with book 3. I've heard that this series just kind of keeps upping the ante. And so I'm really interested to see where this goes. But it's been a great time doing the buddy read with a few other people in Discord on this one. I've been really, really enjoying it. And then next we have Witch 6 by Tyler Sen. And this one was one that did not make it to our quarterfinalist selection for SPSFC2, but I was interested to read it anyway, and so I did. It was pretty short, and this was kind of seemed like a sci-fantasy type of thing. I do a review for this one also, so I won't talk a ton, but it's set up basically we have somebody who is a witch, and they use kind of a form of magic, but in a very much sci-fi setting. They have like totems that have like manifestations of other spirits or personalities or something like that. We have kind of a sci-fi thing going. The first half I found really interesting. The second half kind of shifted gears and went into more of like a psychological self-discovery kind of thing, and I was less into, but it was still a pretty interesting read. Something pretty unique and different overall, so it was definitely an interesting one. And then we have a book that, a reread, but I had a fantastic time with, which was Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan. This is book 11 in the Wheel of Time, of course. And, man, I just love Knife of Dreams. And I was talking in Discord to somebody else who's just not, like, they don't love this book nearly as much as I do. And it's funny because it's another huge Wheel of Time fan. You know who you are, Alex. And she's just talking about how, like, a lot of the things that are her favorite are not my favorite. A lot of my favorites are not hers, but we both love the series. And so it's just funny how there can be some overlap. But I did a pretty good length video for Knife of Dreams as well, and there was just so much to talk about because there's so much going on in that one. I'm really, really excited to get to the last 3. I've had so much fun doing the Wheel of Time reread. I feel like it was definitely the amount of time that I'm like, I definitely was overdue for a reread, and I've been having a great time. So excited to get on to the last 3 and get this closed up here in a couple of months. So we're nearing the end of it, but I've had a fantastic time with it. So we did also have a couple of DNFs here, and I think both of these, it was really more so of a taste/style thing. The first one was 12 Blades in Contempt by Jordan Darrett. Now, this one, the author had reached out to me about sending me a copy, and he was describing the book, and he told me the comparisons, and immediately he was comparing it to some books that I'm not a fan of, and so I was a little leery, and I'm like, hey, I don't know that this is going to be for me. Based on some of those comparisons, like, I don't think that I'm going to be in your core audience. And he's like, that's totally fine. I'll still send you an ebook copy then if you just want to try it. No obligation. So I'm like, okay, I will try it. And he compared it to, it was Cradle, The Poppy War, and Rage of Dragons. And I haven't read Rage of Dragons. Don't imagine I'll like it. Haven't, like, from the people of similar taste, not a fan. Hate Poppy War, of course, which, if you didn't know that, well, you're welcome. Now you know. Really, really hated that. And Cradle I don't hate, but I've not been super into Cradle. I've tried the first 2 or 3 books. It's okay. It's just not really my thing. It has that kind of anime, type of feel, and just not really my thing. And so 12 Blades in Contempt, which I'll say, way better than the Poppy War, in my opinion, by a lot. It had kind of a very different type of story, but it had that kind of similar feel to Cradle, where it just felt kind of anime-ish to me. So I think a lot of people, if you like that kind of thing, I think it'll definitely be a book worth checking out. It just wasn't really my style. I will mention too, the copy I got, and other people had gotten advanced copies. The author is taking all that feedback and then has kind of been like redoing the book and updating it before the release, which is going to be coming up in March. So definitely, if you are interested in that one, keep that in mind. 12 Blades of Contempt. Like I said, I feel like there's a lot of people who will really enjoy that one. It wasn't bad. I didn't really have a lot of complaints or critiques. Read about half, and I'm just like, I'm not really feeling this. I didn't want to push through and end up being like, I didn't like this book. And I'm like, well, I knew I wasn't going to like it just because it's not really my style. Even though it seemed really solid. So definitely not anything really negative about the book, just one that wasn't for me. And I kind of figured that it would be that way from the start. And it ended up happening. And so, oh well, it happened going from there. The other one is, and I'm sad about this, The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons. This is book 2 in A Chorus of Dragons. I have been meaning to pick this up for a long time. Now, I have all 5 books in the series in hardcover. I've slowly collected them as they came out. I read the first book, The Ruin of Kings, quite a while ago at this point, and it was one I was super mixed on because I thought it was interesting. The story format was really weird, and it's sometimes like a little jarring or took a little bit to get used to, but I really enjoyed it. And then the ending just kind of felt rushed, and so that ended up dropping my rating for it a little bit of that. But I'm still like, I'm really interested to see where this is going, and I felt like it was a series I was going to have to read the next book to really decide if I wanted to. And unfortunately, this book pretty much starts over with different characters. It keeps the kind of the odd storytelling format where, and I was told about this, and I didn't quite realize it was like literally this is exactly what it was going to be, because I remember somebody commenting about it a while back. But this story takes place with a main character from book 1 who goes to an inn, and then the whole book, at least I read about half of this. Or actually I did audio on this, which I'll get to in a minute for the audio, because that's a completely different story. But I got through about half of this, but he goes in and sits, and then 2 people alternate telling their backstory, which somewhat seems like it's going to intersect, but I just didn't really care about that story compared to the story of the first book, which was a lot more exciting. We had 2 different timelines, varied, we were moving around, we were doing all this stuff, and I just didn't really care for this story here. The audio was fantastic, and is the only reason I made it halfway through this book. It has 3 narrators who you do the storytelling format justice, do a great job, and I really liked it. It immediately, when it started, like the tone, the humor, I'm like, oh, this is really, really good. But then it just, we don't really go anywhere. And the same kind of humor and tone just kind of got old after a while. And I probably shouldn't even mention this too, because I'm trying to be really constructive here. I know it's a hot topic, but so the other thing this book does, and if you look up reviews for this book, there are some people who love it, or like, I don't know about this, but I'm reading the next book, and then there are people who are trashing it because of gender identity politics. There's a lot of that in here, and it does pretty early on. There is a character who just kind of randomly brings up the idea of like gender identity and explaining how that works and how it can be different than biological sex. And I saw some people who just quit there and like, oh, I'm not reading this because of that. Now, it was a little abrupt, but I felt like it fit the conversation. And also what it was setting up is these people, they're in a country here in this world where they have a very, very different view culturally of gender identity. And the way they do things is not really based on gender as much as the identity. And so I thought, that's a really interesting way to bring that into a fantasy world. And to have that just be a part of the culture. But then as it kept going, it felt more like that's the point of this book than the story, because it felt like we were focusing a lot more on that than the story itself. And then there were some things in the story that seemed to conflict from this actually being this is their deep-rooted culture. We keep being told it's their deep-rooted culture, and then we see people from that culture who completely don't agree with it and treat it like anybody else. And so I'm like, so is it the culture or is it not? And it just felt like we were focusing more on that than the story. I'm all fine with it being in there. Like I said, I thought it was fascinating to bring that into a fantasy cultural setting, because that was a really cool way to do it. But I also want there to be like a good story and for that to be a part of it and not that to be the story. And that's kind of how it started to feel to me. A lot of that story just didn't seem to be going anywhere. Was not nearly as engaged at all Audio is fantastic, though. So if I pick this back up, I am unhauling my hardcover copies, but if I pick this back up, it will be audio because the audio was great. And so if I end up doing that and just listening to the other half and then trying out book 3, I looked at some reviews for book 3 and it just sounds like book 3 is kind of all over the place with what people think. So this just, I don't know if this series is meant for me to continue because I've had a lot of ups and downs with the first and second book so far. So we'll see. We'll see. But that's kind of where we are. And I finished, because I'm filming this late, obviously. I technically finished this in February, but I was nearly done at the end of January. I had like 10% left, and it just took me a little bit to finish. This is the Tome of Heron by Damian Francis, and this was a review copy that the author sent to me. Actually sent to me all the way from Australia, and I didn't realize until I actually opened it that he even personalized and signed it, so that was super cool. This one is one too where I have some mixed thoughts, and it's a book I really enjoyed, although I definitely have some strong critiques as well. So I am going to be doing a full review and talking more in detail about it. But this one, the kind of the cliff notes is it presents as if it's going to be a traditional kind of chosen one hero's journey type of book. But immediately there's a twist on that, and then we also have several other characters that we're focusing on that are doing a lot of big things as well, and so it's immediately using some of that, but then not going down the exact same pathway and going down some pretty different paths for the different characters. And so I thought that it was an interesting way. One of the big things that's brought up right off the bat too was I thought a really fun twist on the trope for it. And so it's an enjoyable book. Had some issues. This did take me a long time to read. This is a chunker, and it's actually longer than it looks. It is a really small print. I ended up buying the Kindle version so I could also read on Kindle a little bit just when my eyes got tired, because I'm getting old, you know. When my eyes got tired from reading the print. But yeah, definitely more to come on that one I will be talking about. And then I have not gotten very far in this yet, but I started on The Oleander Sword by Tasha Suri, which is book 2 in the Burning Kingdoms. Pulled it out of there. It was in there somewhere. The Burning Kingdoms is the sequel to The Jasmine Throne. And this book, I read the Jasmine Throne. I got an e-arc. It was one of the first e-arcs I ever actually got from NetGalley. And so I was pretty interested in it. I wasn't blown away by it, but I loved the world building, the magic system. Some of the things that were introduced were just super cool, and I'm like, I'm really interested to see more. One of the things people kept talking about the romance, and I'm like, it was there. It was definitely an element, but like it was not a romance book. It's like a war and cool magic and world. Like there's so much more going on than romance. And like so far, even early on, there's some of those elements here, but there's way more things going on. So I almost got scared off because I'm like, I don't like romance books. And it has not been that so far. But yeah, I'm not very far into this one yet. Maybe like 10% or so. But so far so good. But I also am not really far enough in to have a lot of thoughts because we're still pretty early on getting going with book 2. But I'm interested to continue this. I am hybrid reading this physical and audio as well because my library had the audio for it also. So we're doing that. So that's pretty much it for January. So like I said, actually a better month than I thought. Have a lot planned for February as well. So we'll definitely get back with hopefully a nice big update for February. Even though it's a shorter month, I'm hoping that I have a lot of nice progress there. But that is it for this one. So let me know in the comments your thoughts on any of the books that I talked about, as well as maybe some of the things that you read in January as well. Always interested to see that. Make sure, of course, to give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Check the link in the description, as always, for the Wizardly Do a Discord. If you want to chat books, whether these books, other books, any books, really anything at all, it is a lot of fun and we'd love to have you. And, of course, if you enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe.